legislation is currently making its way through the United States Senate. It is casually called Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, which might be the dumbest name that I've ever heard in all of my time working in politics, to Mackenzie's shock, in part laughter. The bill is over 900 pages long. It just passed in the Senate on party lines, with two Republicans voting against it, but it looks all set to pass. Here is a little bit of the winners and losers in the bill. So, one winner is going to be corporations. The legislation would make a permanent trillions of dollars of corporate tax cuts that were once enacted in 2017 that were expanded for other tax breaks. That includes permanently lowering the corporate tax rate to 21 from 35%. One loser is going to be people like us in the younger generations. The tax cut would add around 3 trillion over the next decade to the national debt. That means it would require us to borrow more money and pay more interest payments, which eventually, if these things like tariffs come in, is going to make it actually harder for us to, pay our bills. But, us three have to pay our bills with the United States government, 50-50 there. Um, High income households are going to be another big winner. The bill would greatly expand the amount of state and local taxes are able to deduct from their taxes, with the current cap being 10,000 up to 40,000. The biggest beneficiaries of the change would be households making $200,000 to $500,000 a year. And those that own property are likely to benefit because they pay more in property taxes. It is worth noting that a lot of folks, I think they said up to 12 million people, are at risk of losing their health care through Medicaid. There, I think we're over 750 million in proposed cuts that will likely go through to programs like SNAP, which is essentially food benefits and food insecurity. Um, this story has kind of fallen under the radar with all of the Iran stuff, but um, is there anything that you all, I think, are taking from this, or to what I'm gonna piggyback on Mackenzie and kind of pick on her? Um, do Democrats need to be somehow figuring out a way to make a lot more noise about this? There's a lot of other stories with Iran, all these other things, but this seems to be kind of the thing that we should all be screaming from the rooftop about. But I don't know. You're all use all thoughts.
So who benefits from this? Like I didn't other than like I'm just
Rich
confused by
people,
the
rich people,
so
rich
wait,
people.
when you said the explain the household part, what
So
does that even
essentially, if you
mean?
are a property owner, you get to deduct more in kind of you get to claim more deductions on your taxes up from 40. It
Mm,
used to be they were capped you at deducting up to 10,000. Now you can get up to 40. And there are going to be kind of tax cuts, quote unquote, for everyone. However, most of those tax cuts, I think they said 60% of the tax cuts will go to those earners in the top 28 percentile of US earnings. So essentially, as you can imagine, rich people are getting more on their taxes. People like us or people lower income, they might get a little bit, but someone who's making $40,000 getting 100 off their taxes is going to be a lot different than someone making a million getting 50,000. So essentially, they're just trading, they're switching the pie to that the smallest amount get the most, and the people at the bottom either get stuff A taken away in terms of Medicaid and food benefits. They'll get a small little tax break, but it's not going to be enough to like mean anything or supplement any other thing in the
Then
grand
I
scheme of
think
things.
the big thing is the Medicaid cut.
that was the
It's
main
huge,
thing I just
huge.
didn't understand the household part. But yes, the Medicaid. Oh my goodness.
Like, it's just like in the overarching term, the same people continue to benefit, and I guess that's where I get confused at like, well, I'm not confused, but it's frustrating that we don't have more sensible people in this day and age that aren't just like real, like they're draining our pockets in every which way. And we can't, like, we're living on top of each other. We can't afford to buy groceries. We can't afford to do this. You continue to get this debt, and it's like the wealthy does get wealthy. The planet continues to get destroyed. There's no efforts to like balance this out on a scale of okay, everybody can eat. And I think that's what is the most egregious about Republicans, because their whole like ideology is like, everybody should get it out the mud. There should be no help. But like a lot of them come from foundational situations that allow them to propel themselves in different ways. That on the flip side, I think because the Democratic Party is so diverse and deal with so many like socioeconomic, racial identity, so many issues. It's hard to even like grapple up a plan, which we've talked about. It's good to hear that two Republicans voted against it, but it's just like I don't know. And then in real time, like you said, permanent tax cuts. So like, how does that
So
even?
you read my mind because I really wanted to read it because Mackenzie got me thinking. So I found a better way to explain this just now. Wealthier taxpayers are appear set to receive more benefits from this bill, according to Yale. Taxpayers in the lowest quintile, so lowest 25% bracket, will see a 2.5 decrease in their income because of the taxes. So they're basically going to lose money on the whole in a year. Then we go down a little bit, and now it says the highest earners, so basically top 25% earners, their incomes will grow by 2.4. So essentially, if you have someone who's not making a lot lose 2.4 to lose 2.5% of their income, that's a pretty big hit, even though it's a small number. But if you're making $1 million and you see your income raised by 2.4, that's a lot of money at that point. So essentially, they're just cutting from the poor, giving more to the rich, and they're supplementing it by cutting stuff that the poor need in the same time or lower income folks. Um, Mackenzie, I want to ask you a question. Is this actually a thing that people like Cory Booker and other Democrats should be doing 24-hour speeches about? Is this the thing that, or because I feel like we haven't even
I
talked
mean, at
about,
this
I haven't
point,
seen
once
anybody
it's
doing anything, but
I don't even know at this point though, after it's already passed,
I mean, yeah, yeah.
it's kind of like I don't know what they can do. I mean, other than continue to talk about it, and continue to, I think that that honestly goes into like the New York City mayor race and just
Mm-hmm.
like being front runners and really talking about it. But I will say this, the thing about Republicans that just irritates me this much about like bills like that, it's like this whole idea, it's almost like a half thought. Like it's like we're gonna cut SNAP benefits, but we're also not going to replace it with like supermarkets or something for these people to eat. So then they're going to like starve and then be in the streets, and then we're mad that they're in the streets. Like it's just like a circle of like nonsense that I'm like, this isn't going to rid the problem. Like most conservatives that I feel like I've ever interviewed or talked to, they always talk about, like you said, Henry, getting it by yourself, getting it out the mud, and people take advantage of the system, which is ignorant because everybody takes advantage of the system. It like the higher ups are taking advantage of the system, and so
They
what?
take these tax benefits. They take advantage of it the
Yeah.
most.
So it's but my thing is like with the SNAP benefits and like food and living in food impoverished neighborhoods, it's like literally speaking of my neighborhood, granted, I can walk to a couple blocks to the next one, but the grocery store here closed. So like if you're not gonna replace it, then that means that I have no other options here. So then if I start like only eating at bat, I don't even want to go into an analogy. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. But
No,
it's
No,
just
that's
like
but
no,
no,
that's exactly what
yeah,
a food desert is.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
But
then
I
and
also
then
think
and then there's going to be a statistic from Harvard Review saying that this neighborhood is has high diabetes and high sugar intake, high cholesterol. But it's
I wonder
like
why.
and then you wonder why, and then it's like, and then those are all distractions to distract you from the main point that this party and this group of people have decided to take food away from X, Y, and Z so that the top 2%, because then their logic is that when the rich people get it, which is also
Trickles
crazy
down.
because yeah, yeah. And also the thing is now this isn't really like market research, but every time I watch like YouTube videos that have those type of conversations with rich people talking about tax, this is not all rich people, but I will say the few people that be on there do say that they do not mind getting taxed a little bit more if it means going, or they
Yeah,
do not
right.
mind
Yeah,
paying more if they know their main thing is I need to know that it's going to something that is real and tangible, which is some critique that they've had of the Democratic Party. But it's just it doesn't make sense to me because especially when you see as many times of people like documented that are rich and wealthy and of that percent that are openly saying that they are okay with being taxed a little bit more as long as they know that their money is going to, this is just I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
They
like
fix.
it's like the same thing with like what Republicans do, and you made like the perfect comparison, Mackenzie. Like the same thing that Republicans do on like abortion. Like we're going to take away your abortion, and we're not going to fund healthcare. It's like, so where's my outlet? Like, what am I now supposed to do if you're not funding rural clinics? If you're not funding for actual like maternity care in my
Yeah.
state, I'm now just ass out. And I think to your point, that whole trickle down thing has never worked. Where it's like if a rich person gets 2% back on their income, you know what they're doing? They're probably buying something that doesn't actually benefit the community that they live in. But if you give the single father or if you give the family $200, you know where they're putting that money in? The grocery store. They're putting that money at the local store. They're putting that money to get some shoes for the kid or any
A
other
family vacation to support a local economy to go
another
down to
business.
Florida
About to
and
say,
take your kids to
Yeah,
Disneyland. Like,
right.
COVID
Like,
proved that though. I think COVID proved if you give
mhm,
people a little bit of money, they
they'll
help
spend
you.
it. They'll
So
boost the
depends
economy.
on how you look at it, right? Because then you have the other people who think that those stimulus checks are have put us in the way why the market
Yeah,
is how it is
yeah.
now and
Which
all
it
of
did.
these
Which it
things.
did.
true. That was because deficiencies and because people like stores couldn't get the resources they
I
need
mean,
to.
you
Yeah.
don't have to explain that to me, but that's how conservatives literally think. That's why they think
But
like
But that's where so also that's the also the most uneducated party in my or is that just a thing I made up in my head?
no, and I think this is, I think the broader conversation is that like one, I love the point that you both hit at was that you all were basically saying like it's a system thing, but that also like Republicans and Democrats do this too because they're rich too. Like they're also telling you to kind of do something that they're not actively doing, where like they're well aware that the system picks winners and losers and that they are just a part of the winning group every single time. But then they're going to say, well, actually, you don't need us to be a winner and loser, even though that's exactly I Elon Musk. I use tax incentives to help get Tesla funded. I use tax incentives in Maryland to help put Tesla EVs everywhere. That's a government program that is directly helping his business. But for you, individual, you don't need my help. And it's like the fallacy of that. But also, and this is where I think Republicans get it wrong and right, their voters are hurt by this too. And they actually don't think they are. And that I think is actually the most maddening part is that Democrats aren't the only one using food stamps. Like if you look at the most food insecure states, it's all states that line the South that are all voting Republican. Every single presidential election all have Republican governors. Republicans are getting hurt by this, but they're not actually able, whether it's their media ecosystem, the things that they're consuming, not actually to say, hey, wait a minute, why does Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana have the highest rates of diabetes, all these other things? It's because I'm not getting Medicaid, Medicare, and I don't have SNAP. Congress, what are you doing? They're not actually like assuming any next logical thought to that, that their elected officials are actually making their lives worse. And I think Republicans are smart and they're getting away with it clearly, but it's also like, how do you inform someone of something that they're actively participating in that's hurting them? I don't know how to do that.